First of all, ladies and gentlemen, I must say that it is a great privilege to be here, to be able to converse with such distinguished people on a topic which is arguably one of the most hotly debated topic of our times. I have, of course, amongst others, read the signed article by Nandan Nilekani, by Jay Panda, and some of the blogs of Ajay, and of course, very high-profile campaign by Facebook on this. In fact, I'm really amazed that this thing has brought together some of the very diverse set of people. There is probably a good bipartisan support on the current definition of net neutrality amongst, I would say, the free marketeers and the planned economy guys, among the leftists and the rightists, among the liberals and the conservatives, among the NGOs and the regulators. I mean, it is amazing stuff. And therefore, when I say something against it, I was worried that after I finish, I should not be, faced with the charge of sedition. And I know, Nikhil, your views, and we'll talk of that as well on this. And this is another part I would also say, that vocabulary has been appropriated by one set of people. The discussion is on whether there can be a price discrimination or not. But those who argue against price discrimination, they have said we are net neutral. So that means if I argue price discrimination allowed, I am not neutral, I am partial, I am something. Similarly, it was named very well the joys of open word. So if we argue we argue for price discrimination, we are arguing for closed word, I think. No, I'm not saying you chose that. I'm saying this is the perception, Nikhil. I'm not even saying that. The vocabulary has been appropriated by one set of debatant on this, and which I think is another interesting thing. But that's fine. Before I say, I was also put in two caveats. One is that one of our portfolio companies is indeed in the internet business. I believe one of the very good business, and the minimum speeds are not less than 10 meg. And our average downloads of our consumers are download plus upload are of the order of 60 to 70 meg per home per month. So this is all these consumption thing you're talking. And I must also say that never thought of, never done, and thought of price discrimination. So I'm highlighting this caveat only to see that subsequently say, oh, this guy is interested. And I've come here to give my personal opinion. It has nothing to do with the business. And it is up to you to trust me or not on that. The second caveat is the price discrimination is the issue we are talking about, and we are not talking about the free basics of Facebook or zero plan of Airtel, because there can be a lot of debate on what those agreements are structured at and whether they're right or not, because that's not what at least I'm talking about. The second thing I'm conscious of, like many other complex topics, this is one where there are no black and white. There are lots of shades of gray, and everybody should be conscious, or let me say respectful of the opinion of others. It's an issue of balance in this case, and my idea of balance can be very different from your ideas of balance, and I think that we should accept that. In my view, after reading whatever the TRAI discussion paper and final regulation paper, and vocabulary is again my own, but I think the number one argument of the proponent of, and I will use the same vocabulary in net neutrality, is that price discrimination will allow opportunities to create monopolies. It will discourage innovation. It will impede competition. And there is one, I would argue, and please allow me for slight liberty on the words, a grandiose statement that it will impact the people who are at this stage looking at that content, and their views will be formed by reading that content. I think these are the four different elements of let me say, the price discrimination, the number one level. I'm saying there are a number of other arguments on that. And in my view, this argument and all these set of arguments are fallacious. They ignore the beauty of the free market that we have all known. These arguments ignore that what free market does, it creates a fierce competition. And what you think, these arguments assume there are four set of people, they will have only power to give free content, and people will read only those four people's free content, and therefore they'll get influenced by this. And I disagree with that. I disagree with that for the reason there is no evidence about that. And I will give a counter evidence with examples that most people, the layman, will understand. Many of you would have known, my example number, many of you would have known about the television channels. You know about free-to-air television channels? I'm sure. I'm among the older people here. I can say 30 years free-to-air television channels were there. The same argument, the free-to-air channel is no different from free data. Without data charge, you provide a free content. What happened with the free-to-air channels? And of course, later on, the paid channels also came in. That means paid channels are those channels for which you pay the subscription, and free channels where you don't pay any price. These are the two sets. Now let me go my old argument one away. Did it create monopoly? I think free-to-air created such a vigorous competition. One fellow came, second came, third came, 100 came, 200 came. There was no problem on competition. Each of the free-to-air channel did what it had to do. Did it stifle innovation? They came in genre after genre, niches after niches, created a place for themselves. Did it kill competition? There were many small-time entrepreneurs who created free-to-air channel. Many of them are still running it. And some of them have sold to in a consolidation exercise subsequently and made a lot of money. And most important, did it influence all of us? I don't think that those free-to-air channels influenced my mind in such a way that I'm arguing in favor of those free-to-air channels. It was such a grandiose plan. I mean, this assumed that there are 4 players who influence. This is word of 120 crore Indians and, of course, 6 billion people across the world. The data information will come to you from various sides. To assume that it will come from one side and that will influence your mindset is, I think, is carrying it, in my view, a little far on that. But most important, did these free-to-air channels stop the creation of paid channels? No, because consumers consume data content from different sides. They have different properties. There are tabloids in UK, I lived there, which will be distributed free in the underground. But does that stop selling Financial Times or Economist or New York Times at a price? And there is a different market, different content, different niches. And this vast market can embrace all such marketeers, all such enterprises, depending on their business model. So that's my first part. But let me take another example. But before that, I use what Vikram Tewatia has said, that there are different business models of the people. The ISPs and I'm talking about ISP, the internet service provider, include telcos also. There are 2 ways. Smriti is sitting on my side and Nikhil on the other side. She is the internet subscriber. Nikhil is the content provider. I am the ISP. There are 2 ways in which I can run the business. Both of them are, by the way, my customers. And definition of customer is one who consumes the service and pays for it. I mean, there are some very interesting definition of customer that he receives the service. No, he receives the service and pays for it. That's it. So sometimes I charge Smriti the price for that content and allow him to take it free. Sometimes I charge him and allow Smriti to take it free. This is the business practice that we constantly, and sometimes I take combination of the two. It's not that, and let me give you an example of all the everyday example, real-time example. What does the newspaper industry do today? Times of India, you get about 1 rupee 50 paisa in Delhi. I don't know, in Bombay it is nearly that, although it is sometimes come along with the bundling of economic times. It is even sheer the paper cost and ink cost is much more than that. It is subsidized by not subsidized, it is paid for by the advertising. That's the model. I collect advertising, I give this, whom I charge, how much in which combination is a part of the business. And that's true for all the business newspapers. Would you say that the newspaper industry is any less competitive in India? Or would you say that it needs to be dismantled? In which case it is uncompetitive, then TRAI kind of a regulation for that industry also should come. Arguably, even more importantly, it is truly impacting the minds of our people. In that sense, I would further say that I worked in Hindustan Lever for 23 years before coming to the private equity. We would, when we launch the new products, sometimes we'll go and reserve the shelf space in the retail store. We'll actually pay for that. Now, is the soap or personal care industry any less competitive? In fact, fiercely competitive. Even if there are, 5 players who are taking 50% of the share and remaining tail, which are 5,000 players, which are playing in the remaining 500. I'm saying this market is truly much more complex than these simplistic ideas that if this happens, then this happens. This does not take into account the dynamics, that when you do something, I do something else. When I do something else, somebody else does something. And this is about the power of the free market, the creativity of the free market, which is constantly surprising us all the time. Finally, I would say on this particular part, that this regulation of TRAI or what Americans are trying was not there for 20 years since internet has been there. And it has been working well. So why do you say that what was not there and it did not impede the growth? And by the way, Nikhil, I'll talk about some of those mobile gatekeeping arguments also on that. It did not impede. One could argue that, of course, it did not happen so far, but now we are seeing free basics and Airtel Zero. So what hasn't happened so far will happen now. I say, guys, don't worry. Such things happened in the past also, except it came in different avatars and different manifestation. All of you would have known the antitrust suits against Microsoft or against the browser or against the Google. They came in different avatars. This nature of the beast is different to the Hydra. It comes like this sometimes, it comes in different shape and size some other time. So it is not a new thing. It will also happen, and it will also, the markets will deal with them appropriately. I will now come, however, to another argument, and that is a very powerful argument, that guys, this is not about this. You gave a comparison of free-to-air channels, you gave comparison, or you compared it with the newspaper industry, my old company also. But guys, this is internet, this is different. And why it is different? Because it's a network business. And a network business is like the classical network businesses we had earlier, the stock exchanges. You have one NSE. BSE is a poor cousin and there is no third. All of them shut off. These network businesses have their own monopolies. There are only 3 cards, Master, Visa, and very poor cousin MX. Okay? But can you start a new card business? No, it's a powerful network business which prevents others from coming in, because more people use it, more people get pointed. And that is true for internet. Internet, in fact, I may argue, those who are familiar with Hindu mythology, internet is somewhat like Chitragupta, who keeps account of every action of yours. When you die, the khata is there in Lord Yam, this thing. Because every time you go on the net, you leave your footprint. Your digital footprint is much more than your physical footprint. When you go to Shoppers Stop and buy something, that guy only, and you pay in cash, that guy only knows that you have bought a shirt or a skirt or whatever else, and you have paid cash. You don't know who your consumer was that was bought by person A, B, C, D. What is the name of the person? Nothing is known. When you pay by credit card, at least the shopkeeper knows that the name of the family head who has paid for it. But when you go to Amazon or Flipkart, they exactly know that who is the person who is browsing. He went from place A, B, C, D, then he drew the price, put in the cart, removed it, price didn't like, shopped for credit, saw the discount, and then came. So it is like Chitragupta, who knows everything. And this data is extremely useful and firms use this data to create a moat around themselves and create a very powerful business which cannot be broken by others. So it is indeed true that internet in that sense is different. It is also different because what was earlier only some limited exchanges could be created. Now everything can be created into marketplace. And these marketplaces can be very, very powerful. You were like the taxi marketplace, or these days we are talking of financial marketplace. By the way, health tech marketplaces where Practo is doing, or I can name any number on the, hospitality where Airbnb and the Stagela is trying. OYO and not on the other side, hotels, but I'm saying the holiday homes, the Airbnb, the finest example of that in that sense. So these are the kind of, indeed, this is an issue, and this is an issue that needs to be tackled. But where is the right end of it and where is the wrong end of it? The monopolies and oligopolies in these businesses are created by 2 ways. One, there is a breakthrough innovation which others can't copy. But by and large, that has not happened. That app of one marketplace to app of another marketplace, there is no material difference. I'm not saying there can always be a difference. The difference in how much data they collect and how much activity they can get onto their system. That's the difference. Not otherwise, no material difference. And that happens not because our data is free. In fact, I have not known of one such monopoly or oligopoly or marketplace created, because data was given free. That app could be accessed without paying the internet charges, data charges. They've been created by and large either by truly a breakthrough tech, which is possible, but mostly by doing what is the pricing below variable cost, so that the more consumer comes by sheer money power. Each of these industry will see 1 or 2 firms are there, funded by VCs. And actually the third firm stay away from it, because there is so much of fear that so much money is going to be blown that you better keep away from this. And that has nothing to do with the net neutrality. The amount on net is he gave an 23 paisa. According to my understanding, the wireless guys are now down to 17, 18 paisa. I also look at the reports. But the 17, 18 paisa per meg.
20 paisa is the last.
Doesn't matter. I'm saying that, but fine, let it be 23. I run the wired internet and I tell you it is 1.5 paisa per meg. And this is also going to become probably 0.7 paisa per meg. So let me argue, if somebody looks at Times of India, he will probably consume how many mags? Maybe 250 mags. Maybe, unless he reads, good old days, somebody used to tell me that I read from Times of India to published Bennett, Coleman and Company. So somebody shouldn't read like that, but a normal read of Times of India will 10 rupees, 15 rupees. Now, are you going to create monopolies through this? In my view, no. Now, one could argue that two wrongs don't make right. Yes, that subsidy also or the predatory pricing should be tackled. And Competition Commission, by the way, the right place to do it. How to tackle that is a bigger issue and bigger policy issue. But simply why two wrongs don't make right? This subsidy also should be stopped. But my thing is, you are, against stopping the subsidy, you are taking some action. It is like Newton's third law. Every action is the opposite reaction. So life is all about trade-offs. When you do this, some small good, if some big wrong happens, what is the right balance? That one has to see. And in my view, you said about the right of choice. I'll argue that by denying the choices to the consumer and to the producers, that how should run the business, how they should come to it, that is a higher order choice that we are restricting. I will go on many other issues. One is gatekeeping. In fact, I was originally not want to speak on it, but Nikhil provoked me on that. Nikhil, honestly, what you have told me or what you mentioned about is surprised me. We also run many businesses. We run apps. And I am not aware of any time any telco has been able to stop my app. The app goes into the Google Play yard, app goes to Apple. In fact, they have their mechanism that it should comply with such technical standards. They take 3, 4, 5 days that it goes into their Play Store or the iTunes Store. There is nothing else that I'm aware of that any telco can stop my app from running.
I think, sir, people have said that websites have been throttled.
Sorry?
I just wanted to update and put this very, very precisely. The exact term that Indian entrepreneurs have complained about occasionally, from my understanding, particularly Ogle, is that websites and web services have been throttled, not necessarily specifically apps.
I'll come to that. Even the website and web service.
On that point, I was talking about mobile value-added services, where services were prevented, they were shut down.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm coming to first point where you said your mobile app took so much time to come because some telcos did not. But in the old world, first of all, I'm thinking the way, at least I have understood the issue of price discrimination. And if those definitions, at least in my mind, are not right, then that's a different argument. One is there is always one available, and I run the business, or my company, one of my portfolio company runs the business. They provide that you can get 100 meg speed for 1,000 rupees. You can have 100 gig download. By the way, these are the real prices. And post that 100 gig FUP download, your speed will be reduced to 2 meg or whatever else, unless you pay for something more. Okay. Within that, there is no discrimination for one service to another, whatever that may be. There may be distinction. I must tell you, however, the speeds can differ for some practical reason, because the server of the service, the original content provider, may be logged. And sometimes if Google is peered on my NOC, the Google speed will appear with the same speed. Google speed will appear higher to the consumer compared to if Google is not peered in my NOC. And if you have to go to the Google, then you have to deal with the traffic on the way. So there can be differences which are not caused by throttling. They are genuinely technological differences that can happen because the way architecture is done. But to my mind, no TSP, no ISP, at least we run the business, it is legally permissible that you can throttle somebody's speed, you can remove the content. That is one offering. The second offering, and which we don't do, but transparently can be given, that Netflix has come to me. They're willing to pay an extra price to me. So if you subscribe to Netflix, my dear guys, I will give you 15 gig extra. I'm not changing the price for you, Nikhil. I'm only saying those who subscribe to Netflix, I'll give 15 gig extra. And conceptually, I don't see any problem with that. I'm not doing it, but so therefore, but current TRAI regulation prevent that from happening. I'm just highlighting that. That is where my concern is. I'm telling you, this is exactly the current TRAI regulation. I can't do that. The latest. I don't intend to do it. That's a different matter. But we are now talking of a policy framework in general and not for my business or anybody else's business. And this, I think, is, in my view, not right. there are other issues about architect of internet and intranet and extranet, and there were argument about that instead of giving, the government can give funding, which Nandan wrote a signed article which is in the government, and my argument with Nandan would have been, if I think, yes, government should give funding, I have no problem, but don't stop other from giving it free. I mean, these are not mutually exclusive. And by the way, TRAI has given the regulation to stop it without government having even started the funding. I'm saying, how are we balancing this? So that's my thing. There is one other fundamental issue I have. This debate is very interestingly done by the internet haves. This is the internet haves have overwhelmingly voted that internet have-nots cannot have a free access. This is absolute class divide. Who has, all the people who have spoken to TRAI, I would say with reasonable confidence as a marketing person, business person, 99.99 would be the internet haves. Internet have-nots did not have any say whatsoever in this regulation. And they are the ones, if you do a survey, that guys, wait for 3 years till you become rich and you can pay 100 rupees, 200 rupees. Or today you can have 5, 10, 15 free-to-air channels. And they could become 1,000 tomorrow because many people will go, this is a business. They will become 5,000. But you can't have it because, to quote you, Nikhil, I can't give you a taste of something because I can't give you the full palette. So because I can't take you in a 5-star restaurant with 1,000 things available, I won't even use the first 5 or first 500. I think you gave an argument that he doesn't know, he will choose between the two what? I'm saying these are not choice. This is add-on. If he were to choose this 5 free versus 5,000 paid content, yes, I agree with, he may choose one or the other, I don't know what he will choose. But I'm saying this 5 is free and that 5,000 on payment is also available. There's not choice. This is and, this is not or. And that is where the argument, in my view, go wrong.
I have maybe a slight question that I think
We have to.
Yeah. The overall, in my view, I mean, the now die is cast. TRAI has already issued the regulation, so we are probably arguing only to record our voice of dissent more than anything else. So in that sense, it is, but I must say that I argue that the TRAI should have done the forbearance on this issue for the following reasons. One is that there is no evidence, no record, and there are enough evidence on the contrary that no monopolies get created when the people have one model or the other. More monopolies or stifling of the competition happens.
Online or you talking about ISP?
I'm talking ISPs. Even if there is an inadequate competition among the TSPs, if there is inadequate competition among ISP, that's a separate issue. And there should be enough work to be done to create more competition and prevent their cartelization. But it's a very different area to talk about, and it is important that in a controlled experiment, you keep all the variables same and change only one variable. Otherwise, we'll get into different debates on that. So the second reason is, I think it is preventing the freedom of choice of the entrepreneurs, how to run their business, whether they will charge customer A or customer B. It is preventing the freedom of choice from the consumers, that whether they will like to take that free content or not. Who are we to decide for them that they should not take the free content, because India can get into so much trouble after that. I think we are restricting their choice. And at a higher order level, this is not freedom. It is actually, we are putting control and restraint on the choice of the consumers. To my mind, there is a social cost. Now, one could argue how much is social cost, because that freedom of choice, if it were available, and the beauty of a free market economy is that innovative people, individuals create so many alternatives that we cannot even today imagine. Even internet was created by someone. Prior to internet, people would not have imagined. So all the answers cannot be given by me. And I think unless there is a very strong cause, we all believe, we believe in free marketing, that regulation touch should be very light, and it should be done only when it is required. A very solid reason. If you see it happening, yes, you can change it. But because it can happen in the future, and I have some imagination, and I'm starting to regulate it right now, I think it is taking things ahead. On the issue of network business on the internet, I do agree there is a network effect of internet business. I do agree there is a huge issue, and that should be tackled. Otherwise, we will have many monopolies and duopolies on many marketplaces. But domain of that is in the law of competition. And in any case, TRAI can't cover that, because these are the individual content owner or business owner dealing with the consumers. TRAI or the DOT can't deal with that. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I end, and I'll be happy to answer any question as they happen later.